Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a rather overcast Silverstone here in the UK for qualifying for weekend number 4 of the 2019 GT Cup Open Europe. Scott Woodward's here on commentary as the cars make their way out onto the circuit for this 20-minute qualifying session. And this is the first time that GT Cup Open has visited the UK. And they had come here after their previous rounds, having competed earlier on in the season at Paul Ricard in France, at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, and previously from the last round at a baking hot Hungaroring in Hungary. And much different conditions here than they've been used to in the previous few rounds, but even so, they'll try and make the best of these conditions. If you've never seen GT Cup before, it is effectively a contest which allows a mixture of what you'd call cup machinery, cars like the Porsche 911 Carrera Cup car and the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Huracan, mixed with other homologated race cars from the likes of McLaren. You'll also see cars in the mix from Mercedes, so Aston Martin, the Audi R8 is here as well. Lots of different machinery that you'll see. It is a very competitive contest. It gives some guys in different guises, whether it's Am or Pro-Am driver combinations, a chance to go racing on some of Europe's best circuits. So as you can see, the car's heading out on circuit now. Just looking there at the man in car number 12, the Antonelli Motorsport run car of the Italian Glauco Solieri. And there is one of the two Aston Martins here this weekend, two of our sort of guest entries this weekend. We've got two Aston Martins joining the grid that you can see on the bottom. You can follow the championship on Facebook, Instagram and on Twitter, and you can join the conversation using the hashtag GT Cup Open. Now the car you're seeing here, this is one of our two guest entries. This is the Optimum Motorsport run Aston Martin Vantage AMR, model year 2018 or 19. Now this car is being run by Conor O'Brien and Charlie Eastwood. Charlie Eastwood was a former star in Porsche Carrera Cup UK and now he's a British GT racer. And Conor O'Brien has also done the same as well. Charlie Eastwood is at the wheel, and so it's good to see him on his way. You can see the sort of one or two British GT decals also sticking on the side of the cars as they head down towards the back straight. So the cars are using the full Grand Prix layout this weekend, so it's the full length of the track. And just to give you an idea of where they were in yesterday's practice sessions, where the circuit was dry, rather damp. Look at where they were. The driver combo that dominated the way was the pairing of Hans-Peter Koller and Edoardo Liberati in the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo. And they not only were the top car outright, but they were also the top Pro-Am category. As we see Mark Di Fulgencio in the Teo Martin Motorsport entered McLaren 570S. He shares that car with Brazilian Tiago Vivacqua of Brazil. And he's now onto a flying lap through one of the fastest parts of the course, the fast and flowing Maggott, Beckett and Chapel complex. And at high speed, particularly on a qualifying lap, is a thrilling set of corners. Here we see car number 3 on track. This is the ENG Motorsport Porsche of Nicolas van Dierendonck and Bas Schouten. Bas Schouten at the wheel. They were a little bit off the pace yesterday in practice. They only managed 14th fastest in both sessions. So looking to try and make some improvement here in this 20-minute qualifying session. Thankfully, the track is dry, although it says dry, although it has been declared a wet session according to our timing screen here for qualifying 1. So it looks like a little bit tentative. It did rain late yesterday, and so the circuit may be still a little bit greasy from possibly some overnight rain. But if it stays dry, then hopefully we'll be able to see them move forwards. Just seeing a nice slow motion replay here of Bas Schouten riding the curbs into Vale and the double apex of Club. And just see him working away at the wheel in the cockpit as he continues on a fast lap. It's good to see plenty of different makes and varieties of car in the mix, including this. This is Glauco Solieri at the wheel of a number 12 Antonelli Motorsport run Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo. And he was on the pace yesterday. He managed to pick up a second fastest time yesterday. And he was the fastest. He's one of two drivers that have run solo. The other driver is the man that leads the standings, Niki Luttweiler, the Swiss driver who runs in his own 2018 Porsche 911 Carrera Cup car. And he has a win from earlier on at Spa, whereas Glauco Solieri also has a couple of wins to his name. I'm pleased to be joined for the majority of the weekend by Elliot Wood. Elliot's just joined me back here in the commentary box after picking up his rest of his equipment he needs for the weekend. And Elliot, dry conditions at the moment, but in terms of what it looks like, but still a bit of a greasy track there. So trying to find a dry line, trying to find the best possible run to get himself a hot lap might be a bit tricky, particularly when the circuit gets a little bit greasy out there this morning.
It definitely will be, and Silverstone's recently resurfaced the track, so there's a lot more grit in this surface, but what that does for drainage we don't know yet, as it hasn't been tested in the very wettest conditions. As you can see though, the drivers are using a lot of the curbs, and when wet you would avoid them at all costs, so it's suggesting that the track is giving confidence to the drivers at the moment.
Yeah, Glauco seems pretty confident to use as much of the curve as possible. Of course, track limits can be a tentative issue when it comes to circuits like Silverstone, as we see the championship leader and the man that's currently fastest in the session, Nicky Luttweiler, Swiss driver with the fastest time, the only man under 2 minutes 8, 2 minutes 7.909. He's currently clear on provisional pole position in this early part of the session by almost a second. That just shows how dominant he is at the moment. As we say, Nicky has had one victory so far this year in the first race at Spa, but since then he's picked up 2 more podiums in the first race at Paul Ricard and then in the second race at Spa. And apart from that, he's been in and around the top 5 placings. He picked up, by the looks of things, a 5th place in the second race at Paul Ricard. He was then 4th, by the looks of it, in the first race at Hungaroring, and then 6th in the second race. So up and down fortunes here, but Glauco is the most winningest driver, as I can see, on the run so far, because he's had 2 race victories. Interesting in the first 2 weekends, Elliot, is that he didn't score in the first race, but he had a habit of not scoring the first race, but then coming through and winning the second race. He had sort of slightly mixed fortunes being around the top 5 in the previous rounds at Hungaroring. So his fortunes to be a little bit up and down, as both Luttweiler and Solieri are going quicker on what seems to be an ever-increasingly drier track. But Solieri hoping for some better overall fortunes this weekend.
Definitely. The benefit of this 2-race format is there is a qualifying session for each race. So if you've made a mistake, and we're seeing the number 22, and he's completely lost it there, brakes locked all the way through the corner, and that is, that's Nicky Luttweiler at the wheel. So maybe not as confident as we thought.
I think we cursed him.
Yeah.
See, we talked about him. He had a spin. Here's a replay of it. Simply just went way too hot. He took the second bite of the apex, but by the time he took the second bite, he'd already lost the back end.
Yeah, so what you need to do there is keep the steering constant, because as soon as you release it, the car immediately drifts to the left where all the rubber is on the track, and it just slides off entirely. And
it'll have a tendency to basically to snap back the other way, and
yeah,
especially on warm slicks, you'd be surprised how much grip they have when you try and catch a slide, when sometimes you can either delicately balance it on the throttle with the steering, but if you've got warm, almost hot slicks where you've had a couple of laps to bed them in, they give an incredible amount of feedback and grip, and eventually they will bite, but unfortunately it could get to a point where they could spit you out the other way into a direction where you don't really want to go.
Understeer becomes oversteer if you try to correct it too much. And with a lot of the corners here, they have very long apexes, if that's a technical definition. So you really do have to be careful with how stable the car is in the middle of the corner and how much steering input you're putting in. You almost have to commit to a line and stay there. If the car's drifting out, just let it do it. Run over the curbs if you have to, because if you try and correcting it, you're more likely to spin it.
Just seeing that, I think maybe he was under pressure, because we've just seen Glauco Solieri's gone to the fastest time. Now he's set the fastest, at the moment he's setting the fastest first sector of anyone, a purple first sector for Glauco, who has the fastest time of the session now. The only man now dipping into under 2 minutes 7, 2 minutes 6.908, and he's now topped by about a quarter of a second. Here is one of our few Mercedes AMG GT4 cars, and this is car number 2, with the Brazilian driver pairing of Martio Basso, who's at the wheel. He shares that car with Guillaume Salas. They had a bit of trouble in race 1 in Hungaroring, where they made a bit of contact with one of the Porsches, bit of an over-optimistic move into turn 2 at the Hungaroring, and ended up sort of ruining the race on one of the other Porsches that were in the midst. I think it was the 13 Baporo Motorsport Porsche they had a contact with Jean Font and Jean Vignes, the Andorran driver, as we see Glauco Solieri on another hot lap, and he has been quicker in the first 2 sectors. He's on a really flying lap, Elliot. He's now at the moment around about a second up on the current fastest lap in the session. He's really flying out there and possibly aiming for pole position.
And he's over a second up in just this middle sector as well. So going to see him through the final corner as he sets the latest lap, 2 minute 5.684. That is significantly quicker, 1.4 seconds faster than Luttweiler.
I think that's a message. Have that, Nicky. Try and beat that one. 2 minutes 5.684, cleared by almost a second and a half, and that shows Luttweiler might be under a bit of pressure. Here is car number 13. This is, as we mentioned, the Baporo Motorsports Porsche 911 Cup car of Jean Font from Spain and Joan Vignes from Andorra. And it is Vignes at the wheel, who's currently set the 8th fastest time in this session. He currently sits under 2 minutes 9.198. He's also 5th in the AM standings. There's 2 different classes. You've got the Pro-Am drivers and the AM. So basically the AM drivers will have either 1 or 2 driver combination that are both amateur, classed as amateur drivers. And then you'll have the Pro-Am ones, which have a more experienced, technically the faster driver in the pairing. Not always the case sometimes, but most of the case it's recognised usually that the Pro driver is the quicker of the two. And then you have the sort of the driver in that combination as well. It shows you've got two different styles of thought there. Have sort of two drivers that are more, to use the term, more gentleman racers, that are more enthusiastic of the sport, would like to go racing just to have some fun in a Porsche or a Lamborghini or a Mercedes or a Ferrari or a McLaren. And you've got a combination that's got a Pro driver that only is possibly maybe a bit more career-minded, but at the same time is helping the AM driver boost up their speed and their profile at the same time.
It's arguably the AM drivers that push harder, because they obviously want to go as quick as they can. Jean Vigne's just gone 8th, but he did touch the grass going into Brooklands there and almost span it. Quick dab at the brakes to keep the car in a straight line. Looking at the order, we now have all 16 cars on track, but the Charlie Eastwood car, which is shared with driving an Aston Martin at the moment.
That's Conor O'Brien. That's the Optimum Motorsport entered car in GT4 at the moment.
Yeah.
The Aston Martin AMR.
They've spent most of their session in the pit, so I'm wondering if they're either saving their tyres or looking for the perfect space in amongst the traffic.
They could also be looking for as well for a few more, because the track was declared wet at the beginning of the session, to wait for a few more cars to go out there to dry the surface up a little bit more, and as you say, rubber in the circuit a little bit more, so by the time they go out at the end of the session, the track effectively is at its as optimum as you can get it before the end of the session, with about 8.5 minutes to go. So JP Mauro, who is currently the leading of the two Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeos, the other one which was fastest in practice yesterday, and that was the driver pairing of Hans-Peter Koller and one of our Hungaroring race winners, Edoardo Liberati. And they are only sat at the moment in 5th position, as Glauco Solieri is now in pit lane. Car 18, which is Faust Salom, and that is the Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren 570S he shares with Guillaume Peugeot. That car has had its 207.771 time deleted because of track limits at turn 7, so pushing the limits a little bit too far there. But currently JP Mauro at the moment, Elliot, on a fast time, and he could be looking to go provisional pole.
Believe he will, and we've got our leader in the pits at the moment, so he's not going to be improving. Mauro crosses the line in 2-minute 5.668, which does put him on top by 0.016 seconds. That is a tiny margin, as we see a kick of oversteer from one of the Teo Martin cars.
And that's Faust Salom. That's the car that's just had its time deleted for track limits at turn 7, so they'll be determined to get themselves back up the order. Because of that time deleted, they're currently sat in 6th position. The 2 minute 7.7 wouldn't have moved up any further. They've done a 2.7.8 this time, with one of the fastest, I'm guessing the fastest, maybe trap speed of over 150 miles an hour at the speed trap, which is pretty impressive. They're stay 6th fastest, which is under 7 minutes to go. The other Aston Martin you saw just going through the shot there, that's the other sort of guest car, if you like, for their home event. That's the older shape Aston Martin Vantage, if you like, and that is at the wheel Christopher Murphy, who is very experienced in running Brit car, particularly in that car as well. And he shares that car with former Ginetta and current British GT racer Adam Hatfield. And Adam, of course, previously has raced in a Ginetta and British GT, but he's jumped into the Aston Martin for this weekend and trying to see if they can take the fight on their local circuit against some of the more experienced European runners.
And the car we're seeing on circuit at the moment, the number 18 of Fasalon, the team manager of that car, so that'll be, I believe, Teo Martin, has to report to race control immediately. Could that be to do with either track limits, given he's had a time deleted, or possibly a speed trap figure?
Possibly. I mean, it might be just the fact, just to kind of clarify exactly why they had that time disallowed. So, because sometimes if there's some kind of a penalty, and that's not going to help his cause. I know there's two different schools of thought with the track limits, and it's usually that with on the European sort of side of racing, usually it's a case of you're okay as long as you keep at least 2 wheels on the curb.
Yeah, and we saw Salom doing the exact opposite of that for the final corner. See that car there, staying just on track. Some of the others come through the final corner because it's a double apex corner. They just keep on going off track, and then when they cross the finish line, they're not even on the track, which means the lap time almost automatically gets deleted.
Yeah, just seen Daniel Diaz Varela in the sole Audi R8 LMS that's in the field this weekend, and he's sharing that car with Manel Sequeira. Here's another of our Mercedes in the pits as well, car number 32. That is the Fernando Fortes and Guillaume Reishi Mercedes that is run by Victor Cologne and 360 Racing. And they currently sit at the moment in car number 32, at the moment in 10th position in pit lane. It's one of our earlier shots that we saw of car number 3. This was the Bas Schuten ENG Motorsport Porsche. Currently running well in qualifying so far, 5th quickest. But it is Lamborghinis that lead the way first and second in the session. Then it's Porsche's 3rd, Lamborghini 4th, and then Porsche in 5th position. Here's another of our TO Martin Motorsport McLarens. It's early in the morning. Car number 7, and that is the Mark Di Fulgencio car, and that is what's happened just recently, and that again is possibly a consequence of a greasy track.
Yeah, and as you can almost see the second apex of this corner coming into frame now. That is a perfect example of a car committing to a run through the corner and then deciding, actually, don't want to take this angle, I want to maybe go a little deeper, correcting it, and then making a mistake.
Well, the car we thought was in the pit lane for quite a long time has finally emerged from its pit box, and that's the 35. That's the Charlie O'Brien and Charlie Eastwood Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin. Charlie's back at the wheel. Now that car currently sits 12th fastest at the moment and 5th in Pro-Am, so they've got a 2 minutes 8.599 to beat. We've just seen a couple of personal bests come in, I think, for possibly John DeWild, I think, in the 37. That is the 37, which is, looks like he didn't practice yesterday, so that car is back out this weekend. And
Charlie Eastwood's just gone 8th fastest with his latest lap. That's 2 minute 8.133. Looking at the top of the standings, we've got 3 AM cars front, and then Pro-Ams are kind of filtered further down the order.
It's pretty impressive how they seem to kind of almost learn on the fly, quite literally in motorsport. They're learning, developing. I'm sure they've obviously got some very talented driver coaches behind them to kind of get them even better. Interesting enough, Blanca Solieri remains in pits, but Nicky Luttweiler, after recovering after a little spin at Copse Corner, is back out on circuit with 3.25 minutes to go to try and get himself back onto provisional pole position, which is currently held at the moment. But actually, the last time by, still held by JP Mara, who has lowered the target time even further. He now goes to a 2 minutes 5.317, and he's clear on provisional pole, Elliot, by almost 0.4 of a second, and that is a storming lap time.
It is, and the final sector is where he gained a lot of time there. 32.634 second final sector. I think that's at least half a second quicker than anyone else we've seen. Someone else just set personal best in the session, Marcio Basso, 33.67, and we're hearing some tyre squealing there.
I think we've had a spin-off camera. Whether one of our other circuit cameras might pick that up, but I definitely heard that's some tortured tyres in the background. So somebody's had a bit of an off, I think, somewhere, either just pushing very hard.
They may have been learning on the fly quite literally, as some of the FIA standard curbs here literally launch the cars into the air if you run over them. The little green strips on the side of the track, those are the FIA curbs. Not in that frame. We'll see them again further around this corner, and they're designed to deter the F1 drivers from using too much of the track.
Bas Schuten comes across the line and remains 4th fastest, but still the fastest Pro-Am car. And Hans-Peter Koller and Eduardo Liberati, after their pace they set yesterday, their fastest time was a 2 minutes 5.926. So already we've got 2 cars going faster than that. So JP Mara and Glauco Solieri are currently the top 2. But as far as I understand it, they'll have a different driver that will go out for the second qualifying session tomorrow. So it may be the case that Hans-Peter Koller's pace, with all due respect, isn't as fast. Now, I think we're going to find the car which had the spin that we heard in the background. Well held. Very well held. That was the 37. That was John DeWild, who I think is one of our additional entries to the entry list that we've got here, because he didn't practice yesterday, but he is out for qualifying.
I believe somebody else must have span as well, because the car we're watching right now, bashed out, and he drove through a cloud of dust, and the number 37 didn't spin off track. So someone else must have kicked up that dust.
It's a good point. Well observed, Elliot, as he once again Bas Schuten riding the curbs at Vale and up through Club, this double apex. Let's just see how liberal he is with the use of the track. It's nice and tidy that time by. Not going all the way onto the AstroTurf, using all the edge of the curb. Here is Nicky Luttweiler on effectively what is his final flying lap and his last chance to get himself onto pole position. His first sector has to be better than... Well, the last sector we just saw from JP Mara was a 43.469. It's a personal best for Nicky Luttweiler, and he's not comfortable with that car, because going through Stowe, the back end of that car is looking a little more lively than he would like it to be.
Definitely, and we're going to see one of the easier corners here, but you have to position yourself perfectly on exit for the next few, and he's got that working well, but he does have a train of cars behind him, which isn't going to be helpful when you're going for qualifying laps.
Yeah, he's got Mark Di Fulgencio, one of the Teo Martin Motorsport McLarens, chasing him down. The other car behind him, we've got another Porsche in the background that's also possible on a hot lap. So he's got clear track in front of him, just about, but he's got a seething McLaren behind him. We've got a little bit sideways there through Abbey Corner by the looks of it, as he was pushing hard.
There's almost lateral travel on the tyres. The car's going sideways as much as going forward.
But it's great to watch them going at that speed, gliding through the corner. Checker flag is out on the session, which means that this now anyone who's on a flying lap is allowed to finish it, and that means Nicky Luttweiler, well, it is a personal best, and he's lost, and because that slide at Stowe, he's lost more time, so he may have to contend with just third place on the grid, but he'll get another chance to try and get himself a higher grid slot in tomorrow morning's qualifying session for race 2. Mark De Fulgencio, again, set a personal best in sector 1, but hasn't improved in the second sector, and currently may have to sit with 12th position at the moment on the grid.
You can tell when this car's on the brakes because the ground clearance at the front is so low, and when the weight shifts to the front on the brakes, you just see it hitting the ground, which is brilliant to see on these slow motion replays as well.
Sure, they'll be looking at the front, the under trays, looking a bit sort of scuffed and scattered. Across the line goes Nicky Luttweiler, does a 2:07.2 and doesn't improve on his best time. He was only about a 10th off his best time. It wasn't too bad. 2:09 in the mix as well. But there is your provisional pole sitter, JP Mauro, as he and Rodolfo Toni, the Brazilian pairing for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, provisionally will start the first GT Cup Open race of this afternoon from pole position. So it is JP Mauro and Solieri who lead the way. Some more slow-mo shots here of this is the number 2 of Marcio Basso, again using all the curb a little bit more, and quite a lot of curb usage there on the first part of Club Corner, but again, I guess that's just about permitted. As we see now, just JP Mauro checking the times. I'm sure that the team is saying to him, yes, indeed, you are fastest. Last few cars will come across to improve their time. We saw a personal best pass lap time last time by on their final lap from Hans-Peter Koller. So that's the Koller and Liberati Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini. So both of those cars are in the top 5. And a personal best on the last flying lap also from Mario Basso, who when he wasn't hopping over the curbs managed to get a faster time and get up to 14th place. Across the line comes Faust Salom, and he goes up to 6th on his final flying lap, 2:07.505, and he displaces Daniel Diaz Varela in the Audi R8, and that puts Faust 3rd in Pro-Am on the grid and 6th in the overall result, which means that he will start from the 3rd row later on this afternoon. So it is a Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini on pole position, but maybe not exactly the one we expected.
Probably not. And looking at the battle positions between like 3rd to 6th, they're very close. So there's a big gap at the front, and then I think 1/10's covering 3 cars, and we're seeing celebrations there, little tap to the camera.
Yeah, I think JP's happy with that lap, and rightfully so. It was a cracking effort. And the lap which Faust Salom had just set, which put him up to 6th position, has been snatched away again because he's been told once again track limits at turn 1 and turn 7. So I think Taylor Martin might have some conversation with him, possibly, and maybe the race officials later on. But we'll leave them to ruminate over that between qualifying and the race. But they should start this first race later on this afternoon now from 7th on the grid. And that's for our 2 British crews in the British and Irish crews in the Lamborghinis. There was in the Aston Martins 9th and 15th. There's the provisional results. JP Mauro sets the fastest time of the session, 2:05.317 from Glauco Solieri, and Nicky Luttweiler, the championship leader, only managing 3rd fastest. Bas Schuten was 4th in the Porsche, 5th place for Hans-Peter Koller in the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini. The Audi of Daniel Diaz Varela for Vapora Motorsport is 6th fastest from Faust Salom, 7th. John de Wilde is 8th in the EMG Motorsport Porsche. 9th place for Charlie Eastwood after a lengthy stay in the pit lane. He gets a top 10 spot. And Joan Vignes in the 2nd Vapora Motorsport car rounds out the top 10. Fernando Fortes was 11th fastest in the Mercedes, 12th fastest for Mark De Fulgencio. And then Lino Curti in the Tsunami RT Porsche. Marcio Basso, 14th quickest. Adam Hatfield in the 2nd of the Aston Martins, 15th. And then Gerard Tremblay provisionally rounds out the 16 cars. And so here's an interview with our pole sitter, JP Mauro.
JP Mauro, pole position here at Silverstone. That must be a great satisfaction.
Very happy to make pole in this tempo. I couldn't imagine we would be so fast. I had very little time in the car in the practice sessions. So I'm out of words. I'm very happy. And I just hope to maintain this in the race.
The race is going to be tough, but the Lamborghini is doing well here.
Yes, the race is going to be tough. Our car, they added some restrictors to the car, so there was some doubts about the performance. But overall, we did well. On new tires, let's see how we do on older tires, and let's see how we do in the middle of the pack, because most of the pro drivers will be driving the 2nd stint, so that will be our hurdle.
Not too cold for you?
Not too cold. Very hot right now.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you very much.